Hi, welcome back to part 4. In part 3, we've implemented the two methods of valuation discussed in the spreadsheet, the average dividend yield method and the average surplus yield method. The average surplus method is something that I've come up with in order to integrate US Treasury securities into our valuation, so it's not a standard model. In part 4, we're going to create a chart and a table that will be displayed in their own specific sections by using the data that we've calculated in part 3. And also finish off the key value section by adding some additional values that could give us a clearer picture of the calculations that are being made. Let's now go back to our model and quickly add some additional prints. Alright, so now that we've finished our key value section, we can go ahead and create a chart that plots historical dividend data. Let's go to the developer's guide, valuation functions, displaying a chart. And here are the functions that we can use to fill in the chart with our data and then render it. Note that you can only have one chart per model. We will need to fill the historical data, so we need to use one of the two fill historic functions. The fill historic report function uses a report such as the income statement or any other report to fill in specific keys like revenue, net income, EPS, and so on. If you want to fill in the chart with our own calculated data, meaning that we have an array which we would like to add to the chart, we need to use the fill historic using list function. And it also requires an ending year for it to know the date of each value from the list. There's also another function that fills the future data called the forecast function, but we won't be using it in this example. So let's go ahead and copy the fill historic using list function and paste it into our model in the chart section. The first argument of the function is the list. We'll take the dividend yields list. The second argument is the key of the series. We'll start the name with an underline to mark it as a rate, and we'll call it dividend yields. And the third argument is mandatory for the first call of the function. Remember that this function needs to know the ending year in order to plot the x-axis. So we'll take the year from the last price item. So let's expand the prices object and we'll take the first item's date property. Let's use the getYear function and get the year of prices first item dot date. And now we have to render the chart using the render chart function. This function can be found in the developer's guide as well. Let's go ahead and copy this and paste it in our model. Let's save our model, clear the console, change the ticker back to Coca-Cola ticker KO and run it again. And now if we click on the output window, we should see a chart of dividend yields. However, the values seem to be incorrectly formatted and they should be adjusted to rates instead, meaning that they should be multiplied by 100. Let's go back and convert the dividend yields to rates using the toR function. Save and run it again. And now the yields are formatted correctly. But let's check with the spreadsheet to see if the order is correct. You can see that the dividend yield in 2021 was 2.84% and in 2020 it was 2.99%. Let's check with our chart, and in 2021 it was clearly not 2.84% and in 2020 it was not 2.99%. But if we look at 2014 and 2015, there are the values that we're looking for. So the list should be reversed. Let's go back and apply a reverse to our dividend yield lists. Dot reverse. Run. And now the values are correctly displayed. Let's also add some additional series to the chart. I will add the treasury yields, the surplus yields, and the average value of the surplus yields. Let's copy this line and paste it 3 times. Let's fill in the treasury yields. And the surplus yields. We'll go ahead and delete the date since we no longer need it. And for the average surplus yield, we'll make a new array using a function called newArrayFill. It is located in the developer's guide, utility functions. Let's copy it, paste it into our model. The first argument is the length, which is the surplus yields length. And the second argument is the value used to fill the array, or input.average surplus yield. And let's call this average surplus yield. Let's also add the dividends per share to our chart using the fill historic using report function. The first argument is the dividends report. And the second argument is the key, which is adjusted dividend. Also, let's name our chart by adding a parameter to the render chart function. We'll call it historic data. Let's save our model, clear the console, and run it again. So now we have completed our chart with all the information we needed. Notice that we also have some options for the chart. We can view the data table, download it as an Excel document or a CSV, an image, or view it in full screen. Let's now go ahead and create a historical table that contains this data and an additional row for market closing prices. Let's navigate to the developer's guide, displaying a table. And to create a table, we need to create a list of row headers, a list of column headers, which are typically reporting date, and then we need to fill in the table cells with actual values. These values will be stored in the data list. Notice that the number of values in the data list should be the number of rows multiplied by the number of columns. So if you have 2 rows in 10 columns, the data list should have 20 elements in total. At the end of the table section, we need to render the table using this format. So let's go ahead and copy this example and paste it into our model in the table section. Let's quickly fill in our row headers. So our table will have 5 rows. And for our column headers, we'll need the reporting dates found in the dividends report. Let's expand the dividends report object, and we will convert the dividends year property to a list using the report key to list function. And let's delete the getYear function since our return list consists of years only. Now let's fill in our data list. We'll start with the dividend yield list. The treasury yields and the surplus yields. And for the dividends and the reference market prices, we'll use the report key to list function. But we won't be formatting the values to millions, so we'll delete the third argument. Let's save, clear the console, and run it again. Scroll down to the bottom of the output window and let's check the order of our yields. It looks like they're in reverse order since we've reversed them earlier for the chart section. We need to restore them to the original order, so let's apply another reverse to each of the three lists. Let's save and run it again. So now they are in the correct order, but notice that they are not marked as percentages. To fix that, we'll use a function called ArrayValuesToRate. We can find it in the developer's guide, Utility Functions. This function will format a list of numbers to a list of percentages by multiplying the elements by 100. Let's copy it and go back to our model. And notice that our yields need to be converted to numbers before passing them to the ArrayValuesToRate function. So we'll use the toN function and then pass the output into the ArrayValuesToRate function. We'll do the same for the remaining two lists. Save, clear the console, and run it again. And now we have the yields correctly displayed as percentages. So the table section is now complete, and the table can be exported to an Excel document by clicking the Export Tables button. The last thing I want to cover in this video is how to set up a description for our model. Let's go to the developer's guide, displaying messages, and select the description function. This function allows us to write a brief description of our valuation model right at the top of the model. The text is in HTML format, so we can format the text as we wish and even put external links. Note that if this model was shareable, it would have some security implications, but right now our model is not shareable. We'll cover how to safely release this model to the public repository in part 5. So let's copy the example code for the description function and paste it into our model. I'll quickly add the description to our average dividend yield model. Let's save our model and open the output window. Notice that now we have a model's description located at the top of the model. In part 5, we will cover how to release this model to the public repository and its security concerns. Once the model is in the public repository, we will add it to our watch list and set up an example notification. See you in the next video.